MacJones has been having an incredible season, and his surprisingly good performance this week in particular is making something really clear. Coaches have way more to do with how good players are than many fans realize. There have been way too many times that coaches have failed players and it's somehow ended up being thrown all on the player. So let's dive into how some coaches can inherit top quarterbacks in the league and still make them look pedestrian, while others can take someone who's on the verge of being out of the league and turn them into a star. So the obvious example right in front of us is MacJones. He's been off to a blistering start this season, throwing for 301.6 yards per game, 6 touchdowns to 1 interception, and a 66.7 completion percentage. Anyone who watched him at the end of his time with the Patriots or last year with the Jaguars probably didn't see this coming. Mac was terrible and a lost cause according to many fans, but now many teams would prefer him over their starter. In addition, he could end up beating out Purdy for the starting job on his own team if he keeps it up. But this isn't the first time Shanahan has done this. He made Jimmy Garoppolo look like a solid starter-level player while he played for the 49ers, but when he left for the Raiders, he looked like a train wreck. Even if you look at Purdy, he hasn't been anywhere else, so we can't say for sure, but it's hard to imagine Purdy being as successful as he's been with the Niners at many other places. After all, coaches like Shanahan are good enough to make a not-so-great player look good. On the opposite end, you have some players that have inherited much worse situations. Look at Trevor Lawrence in his rookie year. Urban Meyer was one of the worst NFL coaches in recent memory, and he certainly did not set Trevor up to succeed. While Trevor still hasn't played up to the standard that people expected, he improved significantly after they upgraded to Doug Peterson, and he's improved even more now that he has Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen also took Baker Mayfield and turned him into a star. Baker, after an up-and-down run with the Browns for 4 seasons, bounced around as a backup for the Panthers and Rams. It looked like he'd either be out of the league soon or just relegated to being a career backup, until he showed flashes with a good coach in McVay with the Rams. After the improvements he had made as a player, in addition to the good coaching he received, he got his shot with the Bucs. Cohen helped him to take the next step as a player, and now many of us consider Baker a top 5 or 10 quarterback in the league. Now, I'm not saying that the games are played by the coaches by any means, but the coaches do have a massive impact on players that is being greatly understated by the media and fans. Players who you think are busts right now might be one coach away from a breakout season. Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, and Geno Smith are all further examples. So what is it that some of these coaches are doing that is so different from the rest? How do they take players on the brink of being forced out of the league and turn them into something unrecognizable? The most obvious thing, and probably the most important, is scheme and play calling. If you watch a 49ers game, you'll probably see a lot of players looking really open. If you watched the Jaguars when they had Urban Meyer, you probably didn't see that very much. That's not exactly a very insightful revelation that good plays make quarterbacks look better than bad plays. So let's look a little deeper. Tom Brady has talked about a lack of coaches teaching quarterbacks how to read defenses and really understand the game at a deeper level.
There's a lot of people who have no idea what they're doing when they're tasked with coaching a quarterback or calling an offense. I mean, just like we rank quarterbacks 1 to 32, do you rank offensive coordinators 1 to 32?
Tom is the greatest quarterback of all time, and he has lived the NFL experience, so it's pretty hard to refute him. Another factor is confidence. In sports, confidence is one of the most important parts of a player's makeup. If a quarterback isn't confident, he may hesitate just a split second on an open throw. That's the difference between a big play and a pick at the NFL level. A confident player may make that audible after reading the coverage the defense comes out in. The less confident player may see it but second guess himself and go with the original play. Confidence really does win and lose games, and some coaches are good at building confidence while others tear it down. Look at both the Harbaugh brothers. They talk about their quarterbacks like they're the best to ever do it. Now, they may or may not actually believe that, but saying stuff like that about your players and backing it up in the trust you put in them during the game can do wonders for the player's self-belief. Look at this clip from Jackson Dart talking about Lane Kiffin.
You know, whether it's him throwing up his hands for a touchdown before the ball is even snapped, him chucking the clipboard in the air when the ball's in the air.
These stories may not seem like they tie directly into coaching, but they definitely do. Think about the confidence it gives to the quarterback, down to the receivers and the offensive line, that he sees the play set up right and already starts celebrating. It shows supreme confidence in his players to execute, and that confidence will rub off on the players as well. On the other side of the aisle, a coach that never puts trust in his quarterback and throws them under the bus in post-game interviews isn't going to help them at all. A coach that puts their starting quarterback at safety during practice really isn't going to help. I'm looking at you, Brian Daboll. The coach is the leader of the team, and the QB is usually going to mirror the leadership of the coach more than any other player on the team. If the leader is bad, how do you think the one directly below him is going to look? And the final factor that plays a big role is fit. If I brought in Brett Favre and wanted him to run a super conservative check-down offense, I think we all know that wouldn't go well. That's not that far off from what many coaches do though. They have a scheme that they're set on running, and they would rather get good players and try to force them to fit the system instead of making the system fit the player. Russell Wilson with the Broncos in 2022 is a good example of that. Their head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, tended to be a more conservative play caller, and Russell Wilson has a more aggressive, improvisational style. Wilson was a known quantity before going there, so it was easy to see the sudden decline. But what if that was his first year in the league? Then he could have ended up struggling in his early years, and maybe even ending up not getting future opportunities. A completely different path from the early success he had with the Seahawks, or even the success he had the following year with the Broncos. Not much changed in that situation, other than the coach swap from Hackett to Sean Payton. Sean Payton is a good coach who had also succeeded with a shorter quarterback before in Drew Brees. That change took Russell from throwing 16 touchdowns and 11 interceptions to throwing 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Russell was far from the player he was in his years with the Seahawks, but even still, he was a solid quarterback after having been a bottom-of-the-barrel starter the year before. Maybe you don't put that much stock in all these current players that have improved so much with a better coaching fit. But even some of the legends of the sport have had a similar experience. Steve Young started out with Tampa his first 2 seasons. In those years combined, he played 19 games and threw for 11 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. It's hard to imagine the stock on Steve Young was very high, with an almost 2-to-1 interception to touchdown ratio. In just his first year with the Niners, with limited chances, he threw 10 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. And that was just the beginning, considering the incredible career he went on to have. Could part of that change be chalked up to him having been young and joining a more talented team? Sure, but coaching certainly played a role. Quick timeout. If you're enjoying this breakdown and want more deep dives like this every week, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow, and it guarantees you won't miss the next one. Back to the video. There are so many players who are misused every season, and unless you follow the games and players really closely or have played at a high level yourself, you probably don't see the coach's role in many of the problems. That's why there are far more players being held down by coaching than 99% of fans realize. So fans, next time you want to yell at your starting quarterback through the TV screen, stop for a moment and think critically. Is it the QB that's the problem, or is it the coach? Do you have a diamond in the rough who's buried in dirt and rocks, just waiting for the right person to uncover them? That's what we're seeing with Mac Jones. That's what we saw with Baker Mayfield, and your quarterback could be next.